Good morning.
Good morning,
And
Chair
welcome.
Hussey.
Pardon me?
Would you like me to do roll call to establish quorum?
Yes, please.
Okay, Ozzy Carter,
Present.
Latanya Thompson,
Present.
Raina Moore.
Present.
Okay, all board members are present.
Thank you. Do we have any, well, we do have, first I'd like to welcome you. We are the Program and Services Standing Committee of CAB. And let's do set the table for board members and for those in the audience with some housekeeping items. For those in the public, please keep your participation on mute. For those on the phone, please use *6 to mute and unmute. And we'll hear comments first from the board and then from the public by raising your hand. Our purpose is to advance justice, reinvestment, and protect community investments. Okay, to start it off with, we'll, I guess we could do introductions. We could go around the room here for introductions and a little background, if that's okay.
Okay, so you guys can start with the board members first.
Board members first. Ozzy Carter, Chair Programs and Services. This is my third and last year on CAB.
My name is Raina Moore. I'm an Antioch resident. This is my first year on CAB.
Latanya Thompson, Vice Chair. This is my first year on CAB.
Okay.
Okay, and we can introduce staff. My name is Monique Tate, and I'm with the Office of Reentry and Justice. We also have Denise.
I'm Denise Sadkevich. I'm the Research and Evaluation Manager with the Office of Reentry and Justice.
And then we have Jill Ray.
Hi there, Jill Ray, Supervisor Candace Anderson's office.
And then we have Jana Evans.
Good morning, everybody. Jana Evans, Office of Ed, Lead Reentry Transition Specialist for the Game Plan for Success program.
Okay, and then we have someone on the call, and it is Crawford Carpenter. Crawford, are you there?
This is Crawford. I'm a third-year CAB member, and I'll be listening in for maybe about 35, 40 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any announcements? First with CAB members. Any announcements?
No announcements.
Okay, there is an announcement. Reentry for Success is having a clean slate day tomorrow. If anyone would like some further information, you can, well, we'll talk about it later. Or Monique, if you have that information, could you post it in the chat?
Yes, I can do that.
Thank you. Are there any other announcements? Any announcements from our gallery? Hearing none. We'll move to the second item. Is there any public comment on any item under the jurisdiction of the Community Advisory Board and not on this agenda? Hearing none. I'll move to item 3, and that's the approval of the minutes from the March 16th, 2023 Program and Services Subcommittee meeting, which is attachment 1, pages 4 through 6. After we reviewed it, hopefully we reviewed it prior to our meeting, I will be looking for a motion for approval.
Marina Moore, I call for a motion for approval. I'm not sure if I worded it right, but
Okay,
Latanya Thompson, I second the motion.
and the motion is for approval. Monique, will you take a vote, please?
Yes, and you probably don't have any comments regarding that, public comments. No one's stated anything, so I will do I'll do the vote. So, Ozzy Carter,
Aye.
Rena Moore,
Aye.
and Latanya Thompson.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to our next item. The approval of our 2023 program services survey questions, which is attachment 2, pages 7 through 9. Those surveys include both county agency and CBO service providers. And there's also a survey for our in-custody participants. And then we'll go to our third portion of number 4, which will be to discuss next steps to distribute AB 109 provider and in-custody surveys. So the first thing we'll go back to is the approval of the survey questions. Has everyone had an opportunity to review those questions? And after review, I will ask for a motion for approval.
Marina Moore, ask for the motion for approval.
The motion for approval has been made by Rena Moore
Latanya Thompson, I second the motion.
and second by Latanya Thompson. And now we'll ask for a roll call for a vote.
At what
So-
point do we have in this process, Monique, maybe you could help us out, comments from?
Yes, so we'll do the comments first, Ozzy.
Before the vote.
Okay,
Yeah,
All right.
right, at this time, we'll do the comments now.
all
Okay.
right, thank
Okay.
you.
No
Well,
problem.
in light of that, I actually, I have, two comments. One is that I love how you broke down the regions of the county further than we have done in previous years. I think it provides a finer level of detail. Even when we have 3 regions, those regions are particularly broad, and some folks who live maybe on a border might know, not know what region they're in. And so actually explicating which region for your service provider is a really nice feature. So I love that. And I have only one minor comment would be, and the additional question, which I also think is really important for us. Are you able to expand to other regions of the county? I would consider maybe saying, are you able to expand your services to other regions of the county? That would be on question
Oh, I
number
see
3.
at the
Ozzy.
bottom. I see it.
Yeah,
Expand
Okay, are you able to expand?
your service.
Okay. Thank you for that. I appreciate that, Denise.
sure, of course. And other than that, let me see. And then a final thought on question 8 about the additional question, which I also think is really a nice place to go at seeing improvements. I wonder if rather than just having a yes or a no, that we consider maybe a low, moderate, or a high level of improvement in this particular area.
Okay.
would you suggest we consider for,
Areas for-
oh, I see, but you want to ask this question for each service area. What programs and services would you suggest we consider for future development or funding in your area? Please explain why, and have you seen improvements in the areas referenced above? Maybe somebody could tell me a little bit more about what you're trying to get at there. Because basically you're saying you're asking for areas of future development and growth, but then right on the heels of that, you're asking if you've seen improvements. And that is rather confusing to me.
Okay,
So I just wonder if somebody could speak to what your intention was there.
that's a very good question. Let's go back and try to figure out.
And I think because the first portion says for future development, so in the event that there was something already there and it needed to be expanded with additional funding, but then it also says or funding in your area. So it's kind of asking two questions. So the additional question makes it probably not clear if we're talking about for future development or something new. So I don't know when we originally did that, if we were talking about something that was already in place, but if there was additional development that needed to be done in that area, and had they already seen improvement before we expanded out.
Oh, I see what you're getting at then. So you're basically, what would you like to see us consider for future funding? And have you seen other funding go to this
Has there
topic?
been any improvement in that area? So like, you're not just saying that we want to develop this, but having more, and it may not, you might be correct that we don't use seeing improvement, but I think on this question, we were trying to determine like what services were out there, if they needed to be expanded or if additional service needed to be actually implemented because it hadn't been provided.
Okay,
I'm kind of like understanding what you're saying. For example, an organization might like to include some additional training that's current, say, implicit bias, and they don't really have the funding for that, but they're putting it out there that is something that they would like to add to their platform.
And I know like when we originally started talking about this and breaking it down, and this is Latanya speaking, we spoke a lot about housing. And that people
Right.
that were being released from West County did not want to go back into Richmond because it would be a trigger. It was a familiar area and their risk to re-enter back into the jail system was higher. And so they were saying there wasn't a lot of housing in other areas that they would be interested in. So when we're talking to the vendors, they may have a home, but the home may be in Richmond and there may not be resources in other parts of the county. But actually also seeing the need as well for that area.
so that makes perfect sense to me as I look at what you're trying to ask with question 8. Then I'm just not sure that I see that there is a need for the additional question. Because you ask what programs and services, and then are you interested in your area? You ask for an explanation of why. And have you seen improvements in the areas referenced above?
Or if we, additional question, how do you believe that the future development or funding will improve the area? So if we ask them to support it, the need for the
Okay,
service.
supporting that need for that specific service, and that they've seen some improvement. Another organization has been doing some type of service. They see that they've had a great community reaction, and maybe they would also like to implement that specifically. Is that what you're saying?
Or even if they're saying like there's, like, if I said I needed it for, like whatever they're saying that there's a need for, actually having them say how would this actually improve?
Oh, how would what your request improved the circumstances
Yes.
for individuals. Now, that's a very different question, right? Than the additional question that you have here.
So as we talk about this out loud, so I'm thinking if I said that I needed funding for a housing, or for whatever it is, like how would us giving you additional funds, how would that actually impact? Like, what would be the benefits of it? So you're not just giving me, I'm not just saying what I want, but I'm also letting you know how this would improve or play into the reentry program, the value of what I'm asking for.
So should we change the question and phrase it? Or-
Probably
Well,
change the verbiage.
Yeah, I mean, that would be one approach.
Okay,
But I also think that please explain why would cover that.
okay,
point, is what I'm trying to get at. If you
Okay.
explain what, if you say, I'm looking for, our clients need additional housing, or while we provide services in Richmond, our clients need housing in East County or something along those lines, we would, for the reasons that you explained, to avoid triggers
Uh-huh.
and additional housing supports, given that there's no housing there, having additional housing available for our clients would just help reduce recidivism. I think,
I like that because if funds begin to, like, where do we allocate the funds? Or how do we prioritize it? Understand it on a deeper level would help us make the best choice. So I like that.
and so what I'm saying then is that I don't think then that we need the additional questions,
Mhm.
that to just ask, please explain, and maybe say, please elaborate in more detail why.
Okay.
That might
I like that.
help a service provider understand more clearly that you're looking for that breadth.
Okay, so just please elaborate. Because we don't have to say
And
details.
more,
Do we have to say, because if we're elaborating?
Please elaborate why, or please explain why. I mean,
Okay.
that's pretty clear as it is.
Okay.
we
And-
just take the additional question.
The additional question out.
That's fine.
Jill has her hand up.
Yes. Jill?
Yeah, except that I think that the goal of that second question is more along the lines of, are you familiar with programming from other jurisdictions or counties that address this need? If so, please reference, because it gives you points to other service providers, maybe in other areas that are successfully providing these services that we may not be aware of. So it just helps to expand our base.
Oh, I see what you're saying, Jill. Okay. So maybe we could reshape that question then, keep it, are you familiar with service providers that would meet this need? Would that cover the base, Jill?
Service providers or programs, right? Like,
Service providers or programs, okay,
right, because we know that there's gaps in our system. So is there other
absolutely.
systems that fill those gaps and how do they do it, kind of thing?
So are you familiar with other?
Service providers or programs.
Yep.
Providing such services? Or
Programs that would meet this need.
that would meet this need?
Okay, that makes a lot more sense to me. And then we could have a sub question that would be, if yes, please identify that program. How would that fit? Because otherwise what you have is a yes, no question. Ideally, we would want to know who they
were.
who that organization, what that program is. So the sub question could be, if yes, please,
Provide the name of the organization and service.
thank you. Perfect.
Can you repeat that, Latanya, please? This Monique.
If yes, please provide the name of the organization and services.
Name of the organization or service provider. How's
Okay.
that?
Or organization or service provider, perfect.
Okay. And Denise, also, when you're speaking, can you just say who you are? Because the public may not know. We're a very small group and we all know who's
Okay.
speaking,
Happy
but when
to.
someone's looking. And you,
Okay.
actually, you don't have to say it each time if you're still in the conversation. You can, we know you're talking, but like if you're starting something new, hi, this is Denise, and then you add whatever you're adding. So,
Will do.
thank you.
So we're gonna include the additional question that will read, are you familiar with service providers or programs that would meet this need? If yes, please provide organization and or service provider.
Please provide the name of the organization
Name of
or service provider.
name, okay. Or service provider. Are there any other suggestions? I just want to say thank you, Denise, for your input and really for making point to include the issues and things that we have expanded upon that's different and creative. And I want to really give credit to the board members and Jill Ray had a lot of input in that process.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome. I think it is a community process to develop these kinds of surveys. And, everybody's had a role, and for Jill to provide another layer of input around the additional question just provided the clarity that I think we needed to get to the point that we're asking for. So,
Absolutely. And also
Okay.
this last number 8,
yes.
really flushing that out because, I have to be honest, I really had forgotten where we came to actually create this additional question. And thankfully Jill was present at the meeting and
She
was
has a
able
mind like a
to,
steel trap.
I know it, to kind of like mesh it together. So I really appreciate
Yeah, of course.
everyone that's been involved.
Yeah.
So at this juncture, hearing no other additions or corrections, is this the time for approval?
Well,
Thank you.
would you like to look at this, Monique? Would you like to look at the other section, maybe approving them all at once for the in custody, or would you like to do it one at a time? Like the
I think it would be, well,
provider survey, and then you want to go ahead and vote on that first, or
I think we should
Continue.
vote on that first in the event that we
Okay.
might have to go through the second one with a finer tooth comb.
okay, all right. So, so you'll just need a motion for the provider survey questions.
Okay, so we're looking for a motion for the approval of fiscal year 2022 to 2023 AB 109 provider survey questions. We need a motion on the floor.
Serena Moore, I call for a motion for approval.
Latanya Thompson, I second the motion.
And now for a vote.
Okay, and
Monique?
there aren't any other questions pertaining to this?
Any other
Doesn't-
questions pertaining to this?
Before the vote, so. All right, I will go ahead and take the vote. So, Ozzy Carter,
Aye.
Rena Moore,
Aye.
and Latanya Thompson.
Aye.
So motion carries for the provider survey questions.
So moving on to the next item would be our in custody survey questions. Is there any discussion around these questions? Any additional input?
I actually, Ozzy, this is Denise Sadkevich from the ORJ again. I have a couple of questions and maybe some suggestions surrounding this. Well, first, I want to start with, I think getting a survey from our in custody population is a brilliant idea. And the fact that I understand from conversations with Patrice that the sheriff's office is very supportive of this is a giant opportunity for the ORJ and the CAB to better understand the needs of individuals in custody. And to date, much of what we receive from the in custody population comes through GPS and Game Plan for Success. And that is a wonderful program that Jana heads in custody. But what it means, though, is that that is a particular population that is motivated and inspired to participate in the programs that Jana and her team are developing, to get a broad opportunity to reach everybody who is not necessarily as inspired to participate in GPS. That population or that group of individuals is more likely to be down and out and have a different kind of viewpoint about what their needs and their opportunities for success are back in the community. So while we might not get everybody to participate and our response rate may be low if we are able to put this out to the broad in custody population, what we will likely get will be more relevant to the breadth of issues that are facing the population. So I'm really keen on this. I'm super excited. It does mean from the standpoint of an in custody survey that it will have to be paper and pencil. And I think Monique was going to comment on some of this too. And if we have on any given day, 1,500 individuals in custody?
1,200 is what Jody mentioned.
1,200, okay. So, you know, depending upon the average daily population in all 3 detention facilities, it could be over 1,000 people. And so it could be a lot of paper and pencil, which makes for a very tedious analytical process. However, the good news is that I've been through that process 5 years ago with the Youth Justice Initiative, and we had paper and pencil check marks, and we had a process we were able to input that with some software and more quickly analyze that data. So we have a process that we can consider or replicate. It does mean, though, that it's going to take longer depending upon to analyze this survey data compared to the service provider data. And I know in the past that the Program and Services Committee has had guidelines for when they wanted to have that analysis done. what I can say is that it's gonna be a lot more work for the ORJ to do that. We're happy to do it. It's important work, but it's really gonna depend upon the sheer quantity of paper and pencils that we get. And we would want to get as many as possible, and we'll do the best that we can, but it might not meet your the guidelines for your timing. Okay, so I just wanted to throw that out there. All to say, I'm super thrilled about this. I also think it's important to keep in mind that while the average educational level of those in custody in our county is, I think most folks, certainly over 50%, have a high school degree already. But we should also consider that the language that we use for this in custody survey needs to really be, it needs to be very accessible and easy for somebody to understand. And oftentimes, I know I fall into this trap pretty often, is that I get so accustomed to speaking about services and service providers, and people are like, what? You know, tell me more about that. So we need to kind of back up and think about what it is that we're trying to say to ensure that folks who are in custody who maybe don't know about what it is that we're doing or have available will understand. And so one of the things that comes to mind is in question number 2, what is the most critical area of need for you after release? Income and public benefits. How does income differ from employment and public benefits? You know, we say public benefits, but what are we speaking about in particular? Are we talking about disability benefits? Are we talking about health benefits? And I would be inclined to not include income in this, but to say disability benefits, which is a form of income, but it won't get confused with employment. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because if you say employment, that for somebody is, well, that's my income. That's how I'm going to pay the rent and, you know, pay my bills. But if you say income and public benefits, how is that different? We know it's different,
Right.
but somebody else might not.
We know it's income.
Yeah, it is income,
Income.
but it's a public benefit.
Right.
And I don't, and maybe what we want to say is,
Public
For-
assistance and benefits.
Should we list all the benefits? This is Rena Moore, sorry. Like put like general assistance and all the other stuff on there.
I think that might be a good idea. And to say, public benefits or, public assistance such as,
And then put SSI, veterans and,
food stamps
stamps,
and
Medi-Cal or
Medi-Cal.
what do
Yeah.
they?
And Medi-Cal's a
Money-
big one right now.
Money from spousal, what do they?
child support.
Child support.
Yeah, but that would not be, I don't
That-
think
that-
child
that would
support
have
is
nothing-
not a public benefit or
Okay.
public assistance.
So if we said that and we just listed it out and list the different types of income they would receive, and then also include Medi-Cal, because some of them don't have medical benefits.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So I would be inclined to, as I said, on item C, remove income, say public benefits or assistance, and in parentheses, such as Social Security benefit or SSDI. Does everybody know? I mean, this is where I'm not sure. Do most people know about SSDI and SSI?
Probably not.
I don't, yeah. So,
Well, this is Monique. I'd like to, I know Jill and Jana both have their hands up, but I just want to make a comment. We can say such as disability, and we could say maybe 2 or 3 items and just say et cetera. And then I don't know if you
Okay.
want to call on I don't know
Okay,
who had their hand up first. I'm not
who
sure.
had their
I'm
hand
sorry.
up first?
Jill.
Jana, is that you, Jana?
Jill.
Jill. Okay, Jan, I'll just jump in. So agreed on removing the income. Instead of public benefits, I would say general assistance and put in parentheses, food, medical coverage, towel works, list out the few things that's under general assistance. And then I would have a separate line that says other assistance and have disability, veteran services, because those are very distinctly different. They're two different divisions and they're two different needs. There's a lot that falls under EHSD, but those are two that don't. And I don't know if any, Medi-Cal can be confusing because when you type it out, it says medical. So it's best to just say medical, and that way, then it can be determined what they need. The other thing that I would suggest, and just this is what we do in our office, is make this list alphabetical. Because then there's no bias in it whatsoever. Like, we might think housing is the most important thing and that's why it's number one, but then we're doing our bias on this list. So I would the natural order would be alphabetical. And then that way you let them choose. You let them choose what's important to them. Parenting support could also be child support in somebody's mind. So, I mean, there's a variety. I think if you get too detailed, just sort of, really clarify that the language is at a third grade level. That's what they say is generally the best thing when you're dealing with
At the
public
third grade
documents.
level, okay, wow. Thank you
And
for
so like
that.
in number one, instead of what regions of the county will you be returning to is what area of the county will you be returning? And what is the most critical area of need after your release? I would just say what is most important to your success after release, or something along those lines, and kind of put yourself in there, like what are they looking for versus what
Right.
we want from them. So I mean,
Great ideas, Jill.
Yes, thank you, Jill. What is your most,
What is what is most important for your success after release? That's what I documented here. Is that accurate, Jill?
yeah, I think that's familiar language to everyone.
Yes, okay. And then I think for item 2, that's where we should have please circle all that apply. We have please select all that apply in item 1, and I'm not sure we need that in item 1, because we're saying what area of the county will you be returning to? Are folks going to have multiple areas of the county?
No, you want them to be more specific, so that please select all that apply should be under number 2, not number 1.
Right, okay, great.
Jana, you have your hand up?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. And Jill, thank you for
Hello.
pointing out those things. I was going to mention some of them, but I won't repeat them since you covered them. On our intake forms, we do ask what city they're returning to. And oftentimes the response is Contra Costa County, even though the question says city. So just to give a little bit of feedback, people may choose other, even though they belong to one of those areas. Because for some reason they just think entire county. They don't think I'm going back to this particular part. And then, yeah, also the
You
level
suggesting,
of,
Jana, I'm sorry to interrupt, but while we're on item 1, are
Yeah,
you
so-
suggesting we might consider saying what city of the county will you be returning to?
I'm not necessarily making a suggestion. I'm just making the awareness that even though we ask the question, they often just reply Contra Costa County as a whole. So
Okay.
you might get a bunch of responses from this that say other, and they write Contra Costa County.
Okay,
Because
Fair
they
enough.
don't often, they don't often, and then we have to go back and ask them in person. So you said the county, but what city are you going to? So you just might get some that just say county and not actually chose a specific area of the county.
Okay,
That happens frequently with us. And then as far as the reading level, yes, I would consider the lowest level possible. And a lot of the questions we have on our intake forms are like yes, no, or very simple, and we still have some people who can't answer them, which then triggers us to go out and meet with them one-on-one to get the answers. So the lowest level you can think of
Okay,
when you're
that's
writing
good to
out these
know.
questions. And the majority of the people in here, like Jill said, they're familiar with the words, being successful, reentry, transition, support. They're very familiar with those because they're used in here on a very regular basis, and not just from us, but from other entities that exist in here.
And I just want
Okay.
to jump on what Jana just said about the area. Denise, I don't think there's a solution to that about somebody identifying or not identifying the city. I just think the question has to be asked and we'll deal with the responses as we get them. I don't think you
Absolutely.
can solve that.
Mhm.
Right, but we can simplify the question by saying not including county in the question and just saying, what city will you be returning to? And see what happens, as opposed to what area of the county, by even just putting county in the question leads folks that way. And so we can simplify it a little better to encourage the.
Well, so then I would suggest what area of the county will you, or what area will you be returning
Okay,
versus city? Because you specifically are asking regions on this question, but without
Right.
asking it.
So we're going,
right, okay.
what area of the city?
No, what
What
area?
area will you be returning to? And
Mhm.
then the options.
Right.
below.
And actually grammatically, if you could take the two off the end of that sentence. Just, what area will you
Perfect.
be returning?
Yes. Perfect. And then we'll move the please select all to question
Question
2.
two.
And then, so one of the other questions, kind of getting into the weeds here on the list, the alphabetical list, which I think is a brilliant idea. Education and vocation. Is vocation a word that, Jana, do you think this
So-
population is to be familiar with?
Trade school?
So in
Skills,
here, if they're in school, they've heard us refer to education and or vocational training.
Okay,
You want to add the word training?
Or if they've even seen our catalog at all and they're not in school, it does refer to education and vocational training.
and maybe we
Vocation.
then say vocational training then.
Or skills.
Training, because they use it for
Skill- for,
training because she's,
For their program, right?
It's
Yeah.
not just gonna be people in their program taking the survey, right?
No.
Wait.
No, it's gonna be
Yeah, that's what
beyond
I'm
to
saying. So
everybody.
will everybody else know what vocational means?
Maybe not. Maybe they'll know what skills
or
Yes.
trade.
or trade.
Trades, so maybe we say education / vocational training / trade skills.
I think you could just leave education / training on there. I don't think you need
Okay.
vocation.
So we drop a vacation.
Right,
Yes,
train.
Got it.
education / training, okay. Connections to positive social environments.
Social.
You can change that to communities
Leisure.
probably. Connections to positive
Okay.
communities.
To positive community, okay. And we should probably not capitalize that.
You could do either positive or supportive communities. I don't know, Jana might have a better terminology than that, but positive social environments. I mean, that's. I mean,
Right,
if I asked my kids at any point in their upbringing, like positive social environments, it might have changed through the years, right?
right.
Yeah, the majority of people who let us know that they have bad influence, they typically write, I need to get away from my circle, or I need to get away from my peers, or I need to change where I return to, as far as recognizing there's an issue with their environment, but they use those other words to describe that.
Right.
So Jana, would peer be a common word, like positive peer supports?
Yes, that would be common.
So connections to positive peer supports or communities?
I think they would understand the peer supports more than the community.
Communities, okay.
Because I
thank
think
you.
when they hear community, they think of the place they live, not necessarily the people that support them.
Right. Okay, so we have connections to positive peer supports, all right? Family support, parenting support, do we want to consider that as parent/child support? Or add another layer, another response for child support and training? And does child support indicate the financial aspect of child support, or does it, can it also include child support with, as it relates to child care and training for better understanding your child, things along those lines?
So child support falls along the lines of disability and veteran services. It's a totally different division. It's actually state division. So if you were going to put needs for that, I think it would be on that line. Like if people needed connections to disability or veterans or child support services, that's a whole different issue than parenting support is a more positive, like, let's help you get back into parenting. Supporting your parenting relationship with your child.
Do you
Okay.
think reunification is too big of a word? Family reunification?
I think you said it, did they use that in?
We do use that. We have
Yeah.
family reunification services.
I think they
Yeah.
know that. I think it's familiar even in jail.
Right.
Yes, it is.
So would that be a slash with parenting support?
I think it should
Family-
be.
Well,
I think it
it
should,
with family support,
Family
right?
support.
Family support / reunification.
yes.
And in here, there's parenting programs. So they're used to hearing parenting and they're used to hearing family reunification, and they're used to hearing them
Right.
sometimes together, but oftentimes separate.
Do we want to, this is Latanya, do we want to include childcare? Because if they are released and I don't have anyone to watch my child, I can't go to school or work. And I'm back in the same environment, making the same choices.
So that would be in addition to parenting, then slash, or one of it, of.
I think it should be
oh,
different, because when I think of parenting support, I'm thinking of maybe like co-parenting or them actually taking parenting classes and their role as a parent versus providing a service.
Yeah. I would agree that
Childcare.
childcare is distinctly
Right.
different and a huge need. Well, especially in our county where it's so expensive too. So
And then we got transportation.
transportation is there, so we're gonna add childcare. And we have legal assistance. And other.
What I don't see here is medical.
Medical is gonna go under general assistance, and it's gonna say such as and Medi-Cal, and then
Insurance. Well, we're gonna not call it Medi-Cal, right? We're gonna call it insurance because Medi-Cal gets confused
with
with
medical.
medical. So we've
Well, or you
got-
could just put medical on there and then, they're run through.
They might have
determining-
illness, something's wrong with them, and they need extended.
Well, we could say, medical / illness, supports or services.
Or health insurance? Because wouldn't Medi-Cal be considered like a health insurance?
Yeah.
Right, but there are two separate parts of it, right? There's actually getting services for your diabetes, let's say,
Okay,
your chronic condition. And then there's the other aspect of it that is having the insurance for that. So, which would be through Medi-Cal, and that would be under the general assistance,
okay.
as I understood how we were talking about it.
Medical could also include support for an illness you might have outside of just, going to the doctor. Could be, they might need some types of different equipment, they might need special speech recognition. There might be a lot of different things under the medical.
Absolutely,
So
absolutely.
So if I could just jump, so Medi-Cal with the new Medi-Cal rules and stuff, people who have high needs are going to have the opportunity to be assigned to a case manager. So it's sort of it's like a whole person care. So I think rather than getting too much into minutia, I think the point is to get them connected to medical coverage, whatever that looks like, if it's Medi-Cal or if they have access to private insurance. It's making sure those connections are there, and then the rest sort of falls in. If they're high needs, they're going to have a case manager.
So yeah, medical coverage says it all.
So when are you saying, Jill, that you suggest that we not put medical on here? but
Well,
that
it's
we
on there
just-
under general assistance, and then it's going to be in parentheses, food, medical,
Got it, insurance,
medical period, right?
medical period, okay.
Because I don't think you need medical insurance, because the point is if they qualify for Medi-Cal, they'll be with the new welfare rules, they'll be assessed before they leave, right?
Right,
So I just think try not to make it too complicated. Because you're just trying to get an idea from their perspective what their greatest needs are.
absolutely.
And then if you miss something, you've got the other category they can fill in if they feel like something's
Right.
missed.
Okay,
So can we revisit the different, what we've corrected and what we're adding onto this number 2, this list?
absolutely. Would you like to take a lead on walk us through, or would you like me to do that?
Oh,
Okay, I'll share with you what I have. How's that? I've taken some copious notes here. So I have the question reshaped as, what is the most important, or what is most important for your success after release? Please circle all that apply. I'm going to go down the list, but this list is going to be reordered alphabetically. But what we have is housing, employment, general assistance such as food, medical. We have transportation, mental health support, substance use treatment. We have education / training, connections to positive peer supports, family support / reunification, parenting support, legal assistance. We have added 2 additional, one that would be under general assistance, but would be other assistance, such as veterans, disability, and child support services. And then the last new category would be for childcare. I think I've touched on everything. Does that sound about right?
it does.
Okay. And then if you go to question 3, I think we might want to simplify that too, from the standpoint of what is the greatest, or maybe even say the biggest challenge for you, as you return home, something along those lines. What is the biggest challenge
When you return home,
when
What
you
is your
return?
biggest challenge returning home?
okay, what is your biggest challenge? What is your biggest?
What about if you
challenge?
change it to greatest need?
Oh, I
What
like
is
that.
the greatest need? Okay.
What is the greatest need?
But
What is
we
the
asked
greatest
it- oh,
need?
Okay,
What is,
Isn't that kind of like the second
the
question?
second one.
what, the second question?
Yeah, isn't that kind of repeating that? Because
The second is what is the most important?
For your
For
success.
success after release.
So this is gonna, number 3 is gonna say, what is the greatest need? When you return home?
Right, and you're right. I mean, it's kind of the same question, but flipped on its head, right? What is most important for your success? And then what is the greatest need?
but when we try to determine the challenge though, like, this is Rena Moore, sorry.
Right. Well,
The challenge might be
Yeah, it is.
getting along with, you know,
Because the challenge could be that I'm returning back to a house where they are all on controlled substance.
right.
So
right.
I think
Do
you
you
should,
think challenge is a word that a third grader would know? I mean, I think that's where we're going is,
I would reach out to Jana and ask her how to form this question to get the response you're looking for.
Yeah, this is Jana. I'm not sure they would understand challenge.
yeah,
They would probably understand barrier.
What about
They-
fear? What is the greatest fear you face as you return home?
They
What
would
issue?
understand that too.
Fear, I think fear.
so we've said, what is the greatest fear you have as you return home?
What is your greatest fear returning home to your home?
what is the greatest fear?
What is,
As you return home?
And the word home,
Yeah,
they-
that's
when
always a
they-
loaded word.
well, when they read that, their response will automatically be, I don't have a home.
Right.
If they don't have
Right.
one. So, you know,
After
what
your
is,
release? Should we
yeah,
say after your release?
or
what
back
is-
to the community or, yeah, just not home, because for so many of them, they don't have a home.
It's your greatest fear after release, okay? Because we say after release in question 2,
So we can be consistent.
so we can be,
Consistent.
yeah, we can be consistent. We're looking to have them anticipate. What is your greatest fear? Fear or need after release?
I think fear.
Yeah, if
Because
you've already
we-
talked about needs in the previous question, then it would be redundant to say that again, but
Right,
I think if you say fear, and it's an open-ended question, you might get some really interesting answers.
okay.
okay, so what is your
Yes.
greatest fear after release?
Yeah,
Any other question, suggestion? Okay, moving on to
boy,
number
we did
4.
get a bunch of really interesting answers to that question, number 3, huh? Okay. So number 4, Jan, I think we'll need your help with this one too. What are the barriers to reaching your personal goals? What supports or resources would you need to reach your goals?
So barriers, they're used to hearing, you know, goals, they're used to hearing. Supports and resources. Yes and no.
Do any sense of resources service providers, since we use service providers throughout the form? And
What type of help? I think that's better.
help
What type of help?
and so,
Yeah, they would understand what type of help, you know, would you need to reach your goals.
Okay.
And then you might want to put in parentheses, maybe a couple of options for them to think towards, because what kind of help do I need to reach my goals? You're going to have people say, I need to create a 501c3, or I need to,
Childcare or something.
I need to
Yeah.
move to Las Vegas. So I would just, if you're trying to get certain types of answers, I would just put maybe 1, 2, or 3 with et cetera in a parentheses.
Well, and certainly, the more that we have a circle or a checkbox kind of
Mhm.
list,
Mm-hmm.
the easier it's going to be and the quicker our assessment is going to be. So that would be the next thing, is if we ask what type of help do you need,
and then
get,
provide them 3 or 4 examples.
and
for them to check.
we could do that, but then we're leading the horse to water, so to speak. We're shooting our own view on that, as Jill pointed out before, and I'm not sure that that's what we want to do. But if we did identify some things, what would those be?
Well, the majority of the people are going to say the barrier to reaching their goals is housing. And so then their answer to what help would I need is to get housing.
In which case, that takes us to question 2. And do we have that already? Do we even need to ask this question?
And then I have another question. And I don't know a lot about this, like as far as it being on their records or them needing the clean slate, are their records expunged? I don't know if we need to list that on number 2.
Well, we have legal assistance there.
Okay. Okay,
Should we
so
put slash clean slate or?
I think, when you think about legal system, I'm thinking about like maybe like, you know, in regards to my case.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like when I
Okay.
see it, I'm
Fair
thinking
enough.
legal service, like if this is an ongoing case or something was done, or, you know, if I'm trying to get custody of my child, I'm thinking like that type of thing
Okay.
versus clean slate. So we could put legal assistance / clean slate.
That's great.
Okay, sorry, I went all the way back.
No, that's okay. I think.
Okay, and that's because you asked a question, like what would keep me from reaching my goal? And I thought about having a record.
So-
their barriers.
So if we were to think about that, what type of help do you need to reach your goals? And if we try to link that back to question 2 about what is most important for your success.
Should we just take out the part of what type of help would you need and just leave it just as what are the barriers to reaching your personal goals?
Well, I'm still wondering if they're not kind of redundant. They're just different ways of saying the same thing.
And being able to get more out of
More depth.
from them by because that's how they ask questions generally. They'll
I
ask the
know.
same question 3 or 4 times, but different ways, just. to
Absolutely.
actually-
But the problem with the open-ended questions is that it's going to take us a huge amount of time. That's good. But in this kind of research with open-ended questions, we typically don't do more than 25 responses. So that's why we were able to do it in previous years with the service provider questionnaire. But if we're going to go and do this for the in custody population, having it more fine-tuned with checkbox kind of responses, I think we're going to stand a better chance of getting meaningful responses, even if they are not the level of depth that we want. Does that
So
make
what
sense?
I'm hearing you say for specifically for this, we should probably generate choice boxes for them to select.
We could. That's one way to consider it.
And you would probably get a small percentage of these back where all of the check boxes are checked, but all of the open-ended are left blank.
Yep. Yep, I would agree. And so,
So Jana, you're saying they'll go down and just check all the boxes?
And they won't take the time to answer the open-ended questions.
right. So if that's true, which I really believe, Jana, having seen it in other disadvantaged population surveys, that means we might not get a good answer to what is your greatest fear after release. We might not, even that open-ended question, we might not get. So,
And it also
And-
depends on how these are being delivered. So obviously, if you were doing this in a group of people, you could get every question answered. If it's just
Right.
being submitted, you know, with a letter as to why and how to complete it, that would have different results than the first way of being able to administer this.
well, I think the intention is that Patrice is hopefully going to be connecting with health services to align, if at all possible, the focus groups that they're doing with some of these questions that we might have for the CalAIM project. So if they're able to select randomly, let's say, not necessarily folks that are in your program, Jana, but just random group of folks from each detention facility, and maybe have a focus group for each detention facility, we stand a better chance of getting some of these answers in a more efficient way. And then we could link it to what we're seeing from the standpoint of the most important needs, and or what is most important for your success. Another way to think about it too would be to have, if possible, prioritize the items in question too, but that's gonna be a little bit more complicated. I'm not sure at a third grade level if it makes sense, but just having the breadth of topics would be enough.
You know, I would just add, this is Jill. You know, the goal is to try and hear the voices of those incarcerated in our detention system in Contra Costa County, whatever those voices might be and whatever they choose to share. And I think this is a first ditch effort to do that. And so rather than get caught up in the perfection of what might be or what could be or what, you know, the possibilities are, you know, just really what is the goal? And I think the goal is to hear the voices of those people impacted as to what's most important to them. And you may or may not get expansive answers. You might glean some really phenomenal information out of this. And it's the first time. So perhaps, you know, you do the best you can the first time, and then if you need to amend the process or look at how to do it better next time, you can always do a second iteration. But I think the goal being hearing the voices of those with lived experience versus from the provider's perspective or from the county perspective.
Right, and what I'm saying is, I think, well, I hear what you're saying fully, and I'm not saying that we should eliminate these questions. Although I could argue that we should, but I'm not suggesting that. But I think where we'll get the best information is from a focus group. And so if we're doing that and this, then we stand the best chance of triangulating that information to tell a richer story about what's going on. And I think from what I've heard Janice say is that we might have a better chance with in-person conversations with focus groups. Otherwise, from your experience, we'll just get blank boxes.
Not everybody, just a small percentage.
Okay,
Yeah, not
Okay.
everybody. It would just be a small percentage that would do the check boxes, but not the others. But you would still get enough answered, I think, that would give you what it is you're looking for from this population.
right. Well, so maybe we should give it a go then and see what it looks like. And we can determine what the challenges are when we get the surveys back and what it means for analyzing it and trying to come up with a better understanding of what folks are trying to say. And we can do that. We've done that before. It just makes it, it's just time consuming again. If we get 200 of these and they're different, we need the level of work that is required is just very different. So, and having a focus group is, it's just another approach to that.
The other thing that I can offer is that perhaps this is an every 2-year thing versus the other ones, which is every year. You know, getting the pulse of the incarceral population might be best done every 2 years. That way you have time to really vet those answers.
Yeah.
Everybody else has time to implement programs and see them out, and it might just be a pulse you're taking.
I would agree with that. I think doing this annually is a heavy lift, and I don't know that things change that much in the period of time that we're talking about, or in that period. Okay.
Okay, so we'll go to number 5. Well, actually, number 4.
What type of help? Was that what we had?
Yeah.
Number 4.
What type of help would you need to reach your goals?
Okay.
So we're taking out the barriers portion.
We're taking out the support or resources for that. Oh, no, that was the second portion.
So the first portion is, what are the barriers to reaching your personal goals?
And we said that that they would understand the word barrier because it's being used often.
Right.
And we went to the second part and we said we would get rid of support or resources and
Correct.
replace it with what type of help would you need to reach your goal?
I thought we were going to change it to just one question, which was, what type of help do you need to reach your goals?
Okay.
Period.
I thought we were keeping the barriers part from what we said earlier, but
So we've,
But that sort of speaks to it. What type of help do you need speaks to what implicitly, right? The barrier.
wouldn't that fit back into question number 2, like you're saying again too then?
But-
Isn't the barriers portion important? Like, to-
I think it is, Rena, and I think that the benefit of this is it's a pause and think, right? Like pause and think personally. You've done this list above. Now, what is it specifically to you that's going to get in the way? And what resources could help you? So it's a more individualized pause and respond.
Hi, this is Monique. I just want to do a time check, Ozzy. It is 12:15, 12:16 now. This is a great conversation and there's still a lot of work to be done, but I wanted to bring that to your attention.
Thank you, Monique.
So are we saying then that we're going back to the original question 4? And that it would be, what are the barriers to reaching your personal goals? To reaching your goals, basically, after release? And what supports would you need to reach your goals?
No, so on the second part is what we changed. So the first question we left the same.
Okay,
Second question, we changed it to what type of help would you need to reach your goals? Because they wouldn't be familiar with the word support or
Got it.
resources.
got it. Okay, so 4A and this is 4B. Okay. Okay, great.
Okay. Any other comments?
The only thing I would add to that is, Denise, you added after release to that sentence, and I don't think that applies because they
That was
could
Okay.
be working in
Okay.
custody.
Okay. Okay, and then question 5. How important is it that we know that they know names of programs?
I think that would
You
be a
know-
really good question to ask them because you might be surprised that they only know 2 when there's like 20, just for example.
Well,
And I think that would be really
think-
good information.
My sense about it is I think about the model that the reentry service model that was started with the reentry hubs. Another way of asking this in a kind of dichotomous, categorized way is to say, are you familiar with the reentry service hub in Richmond? Are you familiar with the reentry service network in East County? Because the idea of the model, right, is that folks leave custody and go to their reentry hub that can help them navigate all of these services. And so we want them to know first and primarily that that is the place to go to make these connections. Does that make, I think that would be particularly meaningful from the standpoint of what we're trying to do and what Pat has been trying to get us to do, is to make referrals all the time for the Reentry Success Center and the service network so that they can do what they've been designed to do, which is make those connections.
But suppose, this is Ozzy,
Mhm.
suppose they don't know anything about the hubs or the different counties or the areas, and maybe they only know Reentry for Success or Men and Women of Purpose or Health Right 360, and they're not really familiar with those hubs because.
Right.
Yeah.
But then that becomes important information for us because, again, the model is you leave and you go to HR 360 or the RSC. And if folks are not familiar with that, that means we have to do a better job of making sure folks know and prioritize that so that they can then get familiar with the other services that are available.
This is Rena
Yeah.
Moore. From my own personal experience, as being someone in reentry, I didn't know about any of the reentry service providers or hubs or anything like that. I was just released in there. So
Right.
like nobody told me there was hubs or anything like that, or offered me any type of reentry services or anything like that. Just like here's a bird ticket, but like,
Right. Well, and that is important information and kind of the point of getting it out so that we say here, this is given where you live, Rena, that this would be the best place for you to start to help prioritize and get yourself connected with services, as opposed to going directly yourself to, say, Shelter Inc. or Lao or Rubicon, you know, you have a one-stop place where you can get all of that, ideally mentoring and supportive services.
But we want them to tell us
Yeah,
what they are aware of. We don't want to tell them. We want them to tell us.
Yeah.
Right,
I
okay,
think that's good because it allows you to know who's not visible. It allows us to know where there needs to be more training and education as well. Because now as you're talking, like, I need to do more research myself to find out like which one of these service providers provides service when they're in jail, when they're in custody versus when they're out of custody. And then how do we bridge the gap? And that may not be clear to anybody, like Men and Women Purpose goes inside to meet with those that are in custody, but like what other organizations are going inside? Or is there pamphlets or information or literature that when you are released from custody, here are some resources that you can now utilize?
Well, they have those services. Jana's hand is up. I was getting ready to talk about Jana's program. Jana?
yeah,
see you.
no. I would suggest if you really want to gather information on whether or not they know what a hub is and where to go, I would make it a separate question. But I think it's important that you just flat out ask them who they're aware of, because I think that would be a huge eye opener as well.
okay,
I agree.
Because I really want to know about the hubs now myself.
yeah.
Yeah, 360.
So we could ask about structurally, we could ask about the hubs and then go into, you know, please name the programs and organizations you are most familiar with that offer resources in your area of need.
Maybe we'll ask that question first and then direct the
Okay.
question with the hub.
Sure.
Because if you ask, you know, just kind of like,
Yep.
So how would we word that? This is Rena Moore. How would we word that for the second part? In regards to the hub part?
so that would actually be another question.
It would be.
And that additional question would include the listing. How many hubs are there?
Just two.
Two hubs. And we would kind of describe it per se.
Well, I would say, well, are you familiar with, and here I go again, Janet, help me with my words here. I would want to say, are you familiar with the West County Reentry Success Center? And probably we don't want to say familiar with, but do you know about the West County Reentry Success Center? Do you know about the HR 360 reentry service network?
Have you ever used it, maybe? Have you ever participated and have a second portion to that?
We could,
I mean, that's.
and we could ask it that way, as if they have ever been connected to either of those organizations. We could ask it that way.
I think that would be good too, to find out, if they have been connected, if those hubs have referred them to other service providers and things like that, if that's where they would start to get those.
And we know that because we have our Salesforce database. So once somebody has connected to a service hub or any of the service providers, we can see those connections and referrals and programmatic goals in the Salesforce or the SAFE database. And so we can see that. So we would know if we know who the individual is, we will know whether they've been to the East or West County reentry hub.
Okay.
But not everybody has, because not everybody has repeated patterns of justice involvement, right? And the idea would be that determining whether individuals who are in custody but haven't had prior involvement are familiar with these agencies.
Right.
But asking if they've ever used it would be linked to whether or not they're more likely to have had a reentry history. So in light of that, if we ask, are you familiar with, and then asking if they have ever used their services, those are both check marks, yes or no, and we can get at it both ways that way. Does that
It
make
makes
sense?
And then you also have the data already and the computer, if you wanted to generate your own report to see how many are actually connecting with West County Reentry Success Center or the HR 360,
Right,
because you're tracking that. Okay.
we are tracking it, but we are not going to be able to link
No.
this
No,
to something else that will be different.
No, I just wanted to know, because that may be worth discussing at a meeting to know, like, if we've had 15 people incarcerated, out of the 1,500 people that was incarcerated, 500. So like,
Right.
yeah, that's a separate conversation, but my mind is just thinking.
And I know where you're going with that because that is true. I think last year we had, or last community report, we had about 800 people
Mhm.
that were considered new intakes or new service episodes during the fiscal year. And if we have on average 1,200 to 1,500 people who are in custody, but that doesn't mean that many number of people have been released. So we're not reaching everybody, and we know that there's a huge drop off. And just because somebody is referred to services doesn't mean they engage with it or even go at all.
Okay.
So.
So this is Monique again. So
Sorry, Monique.
it's-
Thank you.
excuse me, no worries. It's a very good conversation. Out of respect for your time, I just want to find out, do you want to extend the meeting, or Ozzy, it's up to you how you'd like to handle this. But I just want to bring it to your attention.
Well, I don't know about an extension. I know people have other things to do, other commitments.
Have a 1 o'clock meeting.
We have 1 o'clock meeting.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So we're probably going to have to table this until our next meeting.
They're gonna push us far behind.
It could, well, 30, yeah, it will. Do you think that we could
If we could at least finish the.
finish the last,
The in custody one, the
Yeah.
last one.
right? And, well,
Rena, when do you need to leave to make your 1 o'clock?
Oh, it's on Zoom. I mean.
Oh, okay. Can we
then
give it
Jill-
maybe 10 more minutes?
If we, yeah.
Jill?
Jill,
Jill
Well,
has
I
her
would
hand
just-
up.
I would just suggest, because the one that really makes a difference with budgeting is the agencies and CBO providers, and you haven't discussed a distribution plan. For that one, and so I'm wondering if maybe you could consider finishing the final steps on that one and what you're gonna do next, and then the in custody one, I don't think there's a timeline for this one yet, since it's newly developed. And maybe you
Okay,
already
thank
have
Got it.
distribution plan in place. I don't know that's the one that is hinging on the budget process.
And Monique, maybe you have more information to contribute surrounding the provider and the in custody surveys? From conversations with Patrice?
Yeah, I don't really have too much more information other than I know it's going to be taken in in their class settings. So I don't have a timeline, but because we are at 12:31, what I would suggest for this is, I could take the information, update it, blind copy you all and send it to you. And then when we come back next month, it'll be, I guess, close to completion, because you could tell me if I didn't get it right after listening to the recording. I don't have a timeline for the distribution yet, even for the first survey, other than what you have in your work plan, which we haven't even gotten to that yet. But, you know, you would have in your work plan when the timeline as far as when it would occur.
So the only thing on that, Monique, I think that the critical one is determining the distribution that's been done in the past for the AB 109 provider surveys. I think that's the critical one, because you have a CCP meeting coming up on Wednesday. It says Friday on the agenda, but it's Wednesday, April 26th. And it's a good opportunity for CAB to give the CCP a heads up that those surveys are being distributed and to please return them. Otherwise, you have to wait, I think, until June for the CCP. So I think there is a critical timeline for that AB 109 provider survey, not necessarily finishing up the in custody one right now.
I see.
Yes.
Okay.
I agree.
And Monique, do you remember, did we do the provider survey in SurveyMonkey last year? Did you do that?
No, I didn't do it, but I don't think it was SurveyMonkey. I think it was a different format. But I could definitely look at it and see exactly what it was.
Yeah, we need to track that down and see, because probably from everything I can tell, this survey for the providers is not much different than what we have done in the past. So
Mhm.
if we can find that previous survey
Okay.
and make these minor adjustments, we could, I would think, get this out in fairly quick order to respond to the CCP per Jill's suggestion.
Right. Okay,
So,
absolutely.
because that work is already been done.
Right.
We just need to find it, and I don't know, I was not the person who did it in SurveyMonkey, so we just need to track it down, and maybe one of the other planner evaluators have done it, or we can just recreate it pretty quickly.
Right, okay, yeah, and the CCP, I mean, even with going to the CCP meeting, they can just state that they're working on the survey and at least bring it to their attention. And it is, like Jill said, it's Wednesday instead of Friday. And it's also from 9 to 11 a.m. There was a controversy on the time as well, so.
Right, okay.
So this is Ozzy, what I'm hearing everyone say that someone needs to go to the CCP meeting on Wednesday, 4/26, to give them a heads up that the survey questions will be forthcoming. Is this what we're
Yes,
tasked to do?
and we should by Wednesday have a sense as to whether or not it will be next week or not, that we'll have it ready to go. We do have the distribution list. I believe that's correct, Monique, that you have been pulling that together, so we know who it needs to go to. And I think based upon what we did last year, we sent it only to executive directors. Is that correct?
Yes, that does sound correct. Mhm.
So I think we're in can be in pretty good shape, at least to have a meaningful update to the CCP that it's either ORJ is working on it and it will go out next week, or it's going to go out on Friday. We should have a sense of that.
So I'll make sure I'm there, CCP meeting.
Okay, great.
Monique, you and I can meet offline to get everything in place.
Yes, for sure.
Are there any other questions or comments? I would specifically like to thank Denise and Jill and Jana and Monique for really helping us, go out in the weeds and get a better understanding and ask all the questions that we might have been afraid to ask, but the clarity and bringing it together and knowing that this is something that we have to work diligently, but we do have a timeline.
Right.
So
Right.
I'm just very glad we've gotten to this point. And if there are any other comments, we need to talk about our next steps. We'll come back for review of the in custody surveys. We'll still have to continue finalizing our 2023 work plan. And anything else we'd like to talk about? I think we'd like to probably talk about, what we didn't talk about are the, we have some questions that we're trying to visit some of the CBOs. And also we might want to consider reaching out to CBOs to do presentations. Coming back with some ideas of which CBOs or which agencies that we'd like to hear from. Any other comments? None being heard. It's 12:37 and the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Jana. Really appreciate you both.
Thank you, ladies. Adjourned.